Hey everybody, this is Hyperion here again. Today I'm gonna bring you a video or show you just a little bit about gearing a 0 DPS exploding palm monk and go just a little bit over the gear for that as well as the build that you'll be using for it. This will also go fairly well with the video I posted the other day about with the actual gameplay of a 0 DPS exploding palm monk in a Torment 6 rifting party. Anyways, let's get right into it with the gear. So your most important thing is you're going to be a tank for the party. So your most important thing is going to be very high survivability. And as of right now, before patch 2.1 comes out, dexterity is really not a very good survivability stat. So, in lieu of that, you're going to want to be using mainly intelligence and strength-based gear. So, the main things you're going to be looking for is going to be high vitality. As you can see, my vitality is 6,470, and I've got an HP of 846,000. That's pretty darn high. So you're going to want to get as much life as you possibly can. Next most important thing is going to be all resist. You can see here my all resist is at 1,900, pretty much 2,000. And that's with Mantra of Conviction. If I switch over to Mantra of Healing, that'll shoot up a good bit, and my toughness will go up to about 24 million. So anyways, that's one of the most important things in your gear is going to be your all resist. And then also armor is fairly important. The more you can get of that, the better, because it reduces all damage in general. I didn't focus on it overly much, but you can see here I've got strength-based. I've got some strength-based gear, which strength is 1 point of strength will give you 1 point of armor. So, anyways, those are the main things you're going to want to be focusing on. Is going to be your vitality and your all resist. In terms of gearing, is you want to get as high a toughness as you can. Usually, it's best to be around 19 to about 19 to like 24 million toughness as an EP monk. The next thing that's going to be equally as important with an EP monk is going to be cooldown reduction. And the main reason for that is because an EP monk relies entirely on passive spirit regeneration. If you look at my skills down here, I don't use any spirit generator. That means that I'm going to have to get my my spirit just simply from skills and item affixes. So the main contributor to that is going to be Epiphany, which when it's active, it's going to give you 20 spirit per second. So you want that on as low a cooldown as possible, so that you can continue to get that 20 spirit per second. You can see here, I only have about a 3-second cooldown on Epiphany. So you can see there why the cooldown is going to be so important. Also, I'm using Desert Shroud with Epiphany, which reduces all damage taken by myself by 50%. You can see when that's active, my toughness goes up to 42 million, almost 43. That's fairly good. Alright, so the cooldown reduction, we'll talk about that a little bit. You can get 8% on your shoulders, 8% on your amulet, 8% from each of your rings. Okay, only on my Ring of Royal Grandeur here I only have 6. But anyways, you can get 8% on each of your rings. You can get 10% from each of your weapons. And then so you're going to want to shoot for that as much as you can, ideally. You can also get 12.5% from socketing a diamond into your helmet. the next things that that are pretty much just as standard for an EP monk is going to be the Born's Command set, because the 3 set for that is going to be reduced cooldown of all skills by 10%, and then also Captain Crimson's trimmings, the Captain Crimson set. And you can see there again, the 2 set is reduce the cooldown of all skills by 10%. So with all of that, I'm actually sitting at 71.83, pretty much 72% cooldown reduction, which, as you saw, gives me about a 3-second downtime on Epiphany. I'm using Inner Sanctuary here. There's absolutely no downtime on Inner Sanctuary, as you can see. Just as soon as Inner Sanctuary is done cooling, I can throw it down again. So, it's really important to get that high cooldown reduction, if possible. So that's probably the second most important thing for the Exploding Palm Monk. With that, you should be able to, I'd say to get into Torment 6 games, you're going to want about 60% cooldown reduction. So if you can get up to like probably 18, 19 million toughness, 60% cooldown reduction, you're going to probably be doing alright in the Torment 6 game. Now, not required, but very useful for an Exploding Palm Monk is going to be this weapon right here, the Fist of Az'Turrasq. Now this is going to increase the Exploding Palm's on-death explosion by anywhere from, I believe, 75 to 100%. Mine is 94%, that's pretty high, and what that means is when I am in, as soon as I get that palm up on a few enemies, as soon as one of those enemies die, the entire pack surrounding me is going to die as well. That means it's the same thing with elite packs. If I can throw up that Exploding Palm on a few of the minions, as soon as one of those minions dies, the whole pack explodes. So that's going to be very useful. It can be a little bit hard to get. It's one of the rarer fist weapons in the game. But if you can get your hands on it, I'd highly recommend it. So that will increase your on-death explosion. There are a few other things that will, and I'd recommend stacking that as much as you can. The next is going to be physical skill % damage. That is going to increase that on-death explosion. So if you can, you're going to want to get that on your bracers and on your amulet, and I'm using a Stone of Jordan here, which increases my physical skill damage by 20%. So if you can get that, physical skill damage increase, that's going to be very, very good. That'll increase that damage of explosion of the Exploding Palm beyond 50%. Also, the other thing that's going to give you that, going to increase that on-death explosion is going to be elite damage, increased damage against elites. And you can see that's why I'm wearing the Stone of Jordan again. So that's going to give me 30% increased damage against elites. Now, I'm also using the Aguild set, and some Exploding Palm monks don't like that idea. They prefer to use the Strong Arm Bracers, which is also perfectly viable and very useful. I just prefer the Aguilds because it gives you a little bit better survivability with the damage reduction, and it also gives you an increased 15% increased damage against elites. That's the 3-set bonus. So that's the main thing. The main items with the gear. Again, like I said, it's all passive spirit generation, so you're not going to be using any skills that are going to give you spirit. Which means you don't need critical hit chance, you don't need critical hit damage, and you do not need attack speed. Those are entirely pointless with an Exploding Palm monk. Another thing I just want to touch on briefly is there are a couple of spirit stones that you can use that is going to increase that passive spirit generation by a significant amount. I am personally using the Mind's Eye, and it's when Inner Sanctuary is active, I'm going to gain another 15 spirit per second. And I'll show you here with that with this Spirit Stone and Epiphany up, I have pretty much unlimited spirit. As you can see here, I can Cyclone Strike as much as I want. I can throw up those exploding palms, and I really don't ever run out of spirit. So that's one that's going to be really, really useful. There's also, I believe, there's two more. There's one that's going to instantly restore, I believe, 75 to 100%, 75 to 100 spirit when you use Blinding Flash. That's also going to be, that one works really great, and there's a good Blinding Flash rune that'll help with that. There's also another one which has a chance on, when you deal damage, has a chance to completely remove the spirit cost of all spells for, I think, anywhere from 2 to 4 seconds. So that one's going to be useful. And I also believe that that is the only helmet in game that actually will roll with cooldown reduction. So that'll actually give you a little bit of a cooldown reduction boost if you can get your hands on one of those. I'll link, put links to those Spirit Stones in the video comments, so you can take a look at them. Take a look at them yourself. Next thing I want to do is I just want to briefly take a look at the skills that I'm using. First thing, and most important, and the whole build is actually named after it, is Exploding Palm, EP. You're going to want to use the Flesh is Weak. That's going to make the enemies that have that palm up on them, it's going to make them take 20 additional damage. And that's going to be from any source, so anybody in your group that's dealing damage, it's going to increase that by 20%. You can also, there's the option to use Strong Spirit. That's if you're a little bit spirit starved, if you don't have quite enough spirit, passive spirit generation, you can use Strong Spirit. But as soon as you can get the right gear for it, go back to the Flesh is Weak. That's the best thing. I like on the left click, I like Dashing Strike. Dashing Strike is going to be, again, a very, very important skill. It's going to let you stay ahead of the party, which is where an Exploding Palm Monk wants to be. It's going to let you stay ahead of the party, group up enemies, and throw those palms up before the DPS characters in your party have a chance to get up there, and that'll just keep the whole the whole party moving faster. It's also a really great way to get out of tight situations if you're surrounded. If you've got a really nasty elite pack on you, Dashing Strike will let you just zip out of there without a problem. It's also a great movement speed skill, so if you're needing to look for something, or if you're in a really empty map, Quicksilver will really help you out there. Next, and also very, very important for the build, is going to be Cyclone Strike, and you're going to want to use Implosion that increases your radius. That's this is just part of the build. It's probably equally as important as the Exploding Palm. Okay, on Epiphany, this is going to be where most of your spirit generation is going to come from, and there are two runes here that you can use. You can use the Desert Shroud, and that's what I'm using right now, and that's kind of a selfish rune, because what that does is it reduces damage taken by, it reduces the damage that you take by 50%, but it doesn't help the party out at all. But that one's really useful, and as an Exploding Palm Monk, you're going to be in the middle of everything. Every elite affix, Molten, Arcane Sentries, Plagued, the Ice Pulse, Frozen Pulse, Lightning, everything. So you're going to need to be really tough, and that Desert Shroud can be a really useful tool. The other one, if you want to be a little bit less selfish and help the party out, is going to be Soothing Mist. And that's going to heal everybody in your party for me here, it's 20,000 life every time I attack. Or, which means every time I throw up my Exploding Palm. So that's going to be every time I throw up that Exploding Palm, every time I Cyclone Strike, anything. So that's going to be really useful and really helpful to your team, especially if they're having a little bit of problem surviving, or if you're in a really rough rift where you've got some nasty packs. Especially those Act 5 mobs can be pretty mean. Next is, I like to use this, and this is largely, it's a really good skill to use. I'd recommend using it however you can, but it also has to do with the fact that I'm using that Spirit Stone that grants me 15 spirit per second when I'm standing in Inner Sanctuary. I like Inner Sanctuary. First off, just the base skill. It's going to reduce damage for yourself and all allies that are in Inner Sanctuary by 55%. Now, granted, that's usually just yourself. Nobody else really is going to be inside that Inner Sanctuary bubble. They're going to be outside casting or whatever. But that's going to be, again, really helpful for you, where you're going to be tanking a lot of stuff. So that's just a great base effect. And then I'm using Forbidden Palace, which the enemies inside Inner Sanctuary are going to take 30% more damage, and they're going to have their movement speed reduced by 80%. So that means once I get them inside the Inner Sanctuary, it's easier to hold them there with Cyclone Strike without having to spam it too much. And they're also going to be taking more damage, which is going to mean they're going to be killed a lot faster, and that whole explosion from the exploding palm is going to go off faster. So that's a really good, I'd really recommend that. Another option, and this also has to do, I know there's a Spirit Stone that grants you 75 to 100 Spirit when you use Blinding Flash. And you can see here, I'll show you a demonstration of it real quick. With 70% cooldown reduction, Blinding Flash really doesn't have much of a downtime at all. So that means you're going to pretty much have a constant 75 to 100 Spirit, and that's going to be pretty darn useful. So if you do manage to get that Spirit Stone, I'd recommend using Blinding Flash with Mystifying Light, and that's going to slow enemies by 80%, which is going to be really useful. So that's also, Blinding Flash is just about as useful as Inner Sanctuary. So if you do manage to find that Spirit Stone that grants you 75 to 100 Spirit, when you use Blinding Flash, definitely use the Blinding Flash. Alright. The next is going to be, you're going to want to use a mantra. I personally prefer Mantra of Conviction with Annihilation. I like doing some of the speed rifts, like 45-minute Torment 6 rifts, and Annihilation gives you just a little bit of a speed boost. You also can use Overraw. That's going to give you, the base mantra gives you 10%, the enemies in your area take 10% more damage. Overraw is going to give you another 6% on top of that. So it's going to be, they're going to be taking 16% more damage. So Overraw can be a really useful rune as well. Either one, Overraw or Annihilation, is going to be really great. You can also use Intimidation or Dishearten if you really want. They're not as useful, but if you feel the need to use them, you can. Submission is not going to be anything you're going to want to use at all. The other option, again, is going to be Mantra of Healing. So any of the Mantra of Healing runes are going to be really useful. You can use that if your party's a bit squishy, or if you're in a really nasty rift, you can throw on the Mantra of Healing, give everybody a little extra toughness and healing. Personally, when I'm using Mantra of Healing, I like to use Time of Need. That's going to increase your all resist. And you can see here with that, I'm up to 2,300, almost 2,400 all resist. My toughness goes up to 25 million. And if I activate that Desert Shroud with Epiphany, I'm up to pretty much 50 million toughness. That pretty much is going to make me more or less invincible. So anyways, that's also, that's a really good option, is the Mantra of Healing. Again, any of those runes is going to be really useful. Okay, now I'm going to take a look at the passives real quick. Pretty much the only really required passive is going to be Beacon of Yeetar. That's going to be something that you're absolutely going to want to use. That's going to be a reduction of cooldowns by 20%. Now, I recommend gearing, at least for right now, for one with everything. That's really useful. That's going to be able to inflate your all resist and toughness by a good bit. And it's also going to let you get more stats than you normally would on an item. So, like, here on these bracers, for example, you can get physical skills, you can get dexterity, you can get vitality, you can get life on hit, and my main secondary that I'm using is physical. So that's going to give me 160 physical resistance. So that's more or less, it's giving you pretty much 5 primaries. Again, here I've got the physical, I've got vitality, attack speed's not important, and I've got that reduced cooldown and the physical resistance. So anyways, that one with everything can be really powerful. I know that it's getting changed and, in my opinion, nerfed coming up in this new patch. So you might, if you can, it's going to be up to you whether or not you want to use that. I like to seize the initiative. Again, that's just my preference. You can use Resolve. That's also really useful. You can use Fleet-Footed to give you a little bit more of a speed boost. Anything like that's going to be really, really useful. But that's going to be your choice, again, depending on what you think you need. Another one I like to use is Transcendence. And that gives you life per spirit spent. I go through a lot of spirit personally. As an Exploding Palm Monk, I'm constantly dumping my spirit pool. You can see here with Cyclone Strike how fast I'm going to dump that 150 spirit. It's not uncommon for me to go through spirit that fast, so that life on spirit spent is a little bit useful. It'll give you just a little bit more healing, and it can just help you sustain a little bit longer. If you don't want to use that, I'd also recommend Exalted Soul. That's going to be helpful. That's going to just increase your spirit reserves a little bit. Another option that is also really helpful is Near-Death Experience. That's pretty much going to give you one more chance at dying. So if you're in a really sticky situation, and it's going to give you another chance, you won't have to die. You won't have to lose your experience pools. So if you're just a little bit weak, you can go ahead and use Near-Death Experience, and that'll give you one more chance. You're not going to die as often. As it is with my toughness, I really don't need that. I probably would be running with Exalted Soul just because there's no reason, there's really no situation where I'm going to be dying unless I'm really careless. Anyways, folks, that's about all that there is for me to talk about right now for the Exploding Palm Monk. I know I didn't go over a lot of detail on it, but I didn't want to make the video too long for you guys. Anyways, if you have any questions or any comments, please go ahead and leave those in the comments, and I'll try to answer them and help you out. And I know that in patch 2.1, the Exploding Palm 0 DPS Monk is probably not going to be viable anymore. I'm really sad to see it go. It's been a really fun class to play, or a really fun build to use. Really useful. But even with it going to be, pretty much useless in patch 2.1, I really don't think that patch is going to be coming out for another 2 months, possibly longer. So if you want, you can easily throw together a 0 DPS monk in probably an afternoon, maybe an hour or two, and that'll get you straight into Torment 6 games. So right now, if you're struggling with a different class or a different build and not able to quite get into Torment 6 and you really want to do that, I'd recommend throwing together an Exploding Palm Monk and go ahead and just run that in Torment 6. And the reason that you'd want to do that is, first off, in a Torment 6 game, in a Torment 6 rift, you're going to get 100, more or less 100 blood shards per rift. That stacks up pretty fast. Also, in Torment 6 games, most players generally tend to be fairly well geared out, and they're always working on gearing up their alt their alternate classes. So if they're running in Torment 6, chances are that class is fully geared out, or that character is fully geared out. They're going to be giving away some free gear for that specific class, so you can pick that up and help yourself gear up other characters. Personally, what I do is I play on my monk, collect up to 500 blood shards, then I'll switch to another class and I'll gamble and start gearing those up. As you can see here, I'm working on gearing up a Crusader with the Akan set. I'm just a couple items short on that. I've got a fully viable Torment 6 Jade Doctor. This gear here is all from either handoffs from party members or from gambling from Kadala. Again, here I've got a full Torment 6 capable Earthquake Leap Barbarian. Again, this is from Kadala or handoffs from party members. I also have a Pet Doctor here, pretty well geared out. There's just a few items missing, but I'm going to be getting those from either Kadala or party members. So anyways, I really recommend getting into Torment 6. The gold is better, the experience is better, you get blood shards faster, and the Exploding Palm Monk is really kind of a way to cheat your way up into Torment 6. So anyways, if you follow my build, just follow my instructions that I list in the video, you can probably have a Torment 6 monk up and running in Torment 6 games in a few hours. Anyways, like I said, if you have any comments or questions, please leave those down below and I'll try and answer them and respond to you guys. And anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys taking your time to watch this, and hope you guys have a great day.